Let's try this. What does degree 2 mean? What does degree 2 mean? Yes. X squared, right? So when you have a polynomial, the exponent of the highest power is called the degree of that polynomial. So if you have a cubic polynomial, what's the degree? 3, right? Because cubic means x cubed, right? So x to the third power, right? Sometimes we call it order. So if you say fx is order 3, a polynomial of order 3 or polynomial of degree 3, same thing. Okay. All right. So you have a quadratic polynomial, and you have f negative 1 equal to 0 and f of 3 equal to 0. Okay. What do these mean? So what can we know about the function f of x if that's true? So first of all, f of minus 1 equal to 0. What kind of function gives you minus 1 giving you 0? If it has a multiple of x plus what gives you 0 when you plug in negative 1? Yeah, if you have x plus 1, when you plug in negative 1, this is going to give you 0. Do you agree? Yeah, so this will be one of the factors. That's called the factor theorem, right? How about f of 3 equal to 0? To have 3 to give you 0 is like x plus what gives you 0? X minus 3, right? X plus negative 3 is going to give you 0 when you plug in 3, right? And if you just have a constant multiply, this is indeed a degree 2 polynomial because x times x is x squared, right? If you expand this, this is going to be a degree 2 polynomial. Is that okay? All right. And then we can use this last hint to figure out what a is, because if I plug in x equals to 2 for everywhere, then I get f of 2, but what f of 2 is 6. And you get 2 plus 1, 2 minus 3. Let's see, 6 equals to 2 plus 1 is 3. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So 6 is equal to 3 times negative 1 times a. So that's negative 3a, right? Now divide both sides by negative 3. What do you get for a? You get a equals to negative 2. Okay. Is that the answer? No, it's not. Why? Because the original question is asking for the function. We didn't find the function yet. How do you end this? How do you get the answer? We plug it back into here, right? And that's your function. The function that we're looking for is negative 2 times x plus 1 times x minus 3. Now, if you write this, that's full credit. But some of you would want to make sure that this is indeed a quadratic polynomial, so you can FOIL this out. And combining like terms, you're going to get this as minus 2x minus 3. And then you multiply by negative 2, it's going to be negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 6. Okay? So that's another way to write down the same answer. This is full credit. This would be also full credit. But if you write it like this, it's obvious that this is a second order polynomial, right? Okay. All right. The next question, 28. F of x is quadratic with the vertex 1, 8 and y-intercept negative 4. What's f of x? Okay, so we need to know the vertex form of a quadratic equation. If you don't know this, then you won't be able to solve this question. This is the vertex form of a quadratic polynomial where h comma k is called the vertex. Okay, so you get a times x minus, because the vertex is 1, 8, h is 1 and k is 8, so we put x minus 1 squared plus 8 equals to f of x. Okay, the y-intercept is -4. What does y-intercept -4 mean? It means that it passes point 0, comma, -4. And that means when x is 0, y is -4. Whenever you're given a formula where you have a constant that you don't know, often that constant can be figured out by knowing just a point on the graph. If you know the point on the graph, that unknown constant can be figured out by setting x as 0 and y as -4. So you have -4 equals to a times 0 minus 1 squared plus 8. And now you have -4 equals to a plus 8. Okay? And that gives you a as -12. Is that the answer? No. What's the answer? Plug it back in, and the answer is f of x equals to -12 x minus 1 squared plus 8. That's the final answer. Okay. Find the value of k so that y equals x plus 5 squared plus k passes 0, comma, -11. Similar flavor. If you have an unknown constant, how do you figure out the unknown constant? You plug in the given point. So here's x, here's y, which means y becomes -11, x becomes 0. So that gives you -11 equals to 5 squared plus k. So k is going to be -36. Here, we don't have to plug this back in because the question is just asking for the k value. So we just stop here. Question 30. You want to write this in this form. Well, it's almost in that form. It's a bit silly. But then, so I guess the question is something like this. I see this much. Okay, so I see, I guess the easiest one is k. What's k? If these two are the same, k must be -7, right? So if you set k as -7, then the only thing that we need to figure out is how to make x plus 6 squared over 3 look like a times x minus h squared. Okay. And the first challenge is you have a division here, whereas this is a multiplication. How do you turn division into multiplication? Multiply the reciprocal. So you can rewrite this as 1/3 times x plus 6 squared, then this checks out. Therefore, a must be 1/3, right? Okay, but then I have a plus 6 here, whereas there's a minus h. So what could h be? -6, because if you subtract -6, it's plus 6, right? So the idea here is if you have x plus 6, that can be written as x minus -6, because minus of minus is plus, right? Why do I write it like this? Because if you write like this, then you can immediately compare with this x minus h. So if you write down x plus 6 as x minus minus 6, you can immediately compare with this h and say, oh, h must be -6. Okay? So the answers are h equals to -6, a is 1/3, and k is -7. Next one is, okay, here we have a parabola, and the question is to find the equation of the parabola. Again, you have to start with the vertex form. Okay. So you write down the vertex form of the parabola. But what's h and what's k? According to this picture, what's h and what's k? Where's the vertex? 4, 5. So h must be 4, k must be 5. Then it leaves this unknown a. A is the only thing that we have to figure out. What do you do now? What do you do? Yeah, but before you solve for a, what do? Plug in x and y. You're given this extra point, 7, 9, that we haven't used, right? So you're going to use this 7 as x and 9 as y. So you're going to have y as 9, 7, which if you subtract 5 both sides, 9 minus 5 is 4. 7 minus 4 squared is times 3. This is plus 0. And then but 3 squared, right? So that's 9. So that means if you divide both sides by 9, you get a as 3/4. Okay, is that the answer? No, what's the answer? You have to plug in back. So answer would be y equals to, oh, sorry, that's wrong. What am I saying? 4/9, right? Yeah. 3 squared is 9. If you divide both sides by 9, it's 4/9. So that 4/9 has to be plugged in there. You have 4/9 x minus 4 squared plus 5. That's the answer. A champagne bottle is thrown upwards, and it's recording the speed of the bottle at each time t. Initially, it's thrown upwards at 38 feet per second, 38 feet per second. And then because of the gravity that's pulling it down, it will gradually slow down. And at some point, it's going to return and fall back. So that's why you see negative velocities after some time. Okay. And the question is challenging us to find the formula for v as a function of t. Now, initially, this looks challenging, but if you study the numbers carefully, you see that there was this drop of what? 30? Yeah, negative 32. So every time 1 second passed, 32 dropped. So if you subtract 32, you get the next one. You move to the next one by moving by 32. Now, if you were to draw this graph of v with respect to t, then at 0, you're going to get something like 38, and then at 1, you're going to get negative 6, and then you're going to get negative 26. But the way it declines will be equally spaced, right, as t goes on, right? So the graph of v would look like what? If you were to draw all the in-between numbers, what kind of graph would you get? It will be a straight line, right? It will be a straight line. Okay. And that's everything about these modeling type of questions. You just have to figure out if the function that you're looking for is a line. If it's a line, then you know what to do, right? What's the equation for a line? Yes. So in our case, Vt is mt plus b. Because our independent variable is t rather than x. So instead of mx plus b, you write mt plus b. No, not yet. We still have to figure out m and v. Okay. So let's think about m. How do you get the slope? M is change of y over change of x. But that's when your variables are x and y, right? If y is a function of x, then this is what you do. But v is a function of t. So what should I write? Change of v over change of t, right? See, t is the independent variable and v depends on t. y depends on x, right? So because you do dependent variable over independent variable, okay? Same thing here. V is a function of t, so you do change of v with respect to change of t. Okay, so let's actually do this. Well, to do this, you need to pick up 2 points, right? So you should really think of this first data point as 0, 38, and the second data point as 1, 6. So you're looking for the change in v and change in x. Let's first look at the velocity change. So velocity went from 38 to 6. What's change of v? Negative 32. Okay. You don't say positive 32 because it went down, right? 38 went down to 6. If you had $38 and the next day you opened your bank account, you only have $6, what did you buy? You bought $32 amount, right? So it's negative 32. Your bank account went down by negative 32. Okay, what's the change in time? Went from 0 to 1, so it's 1, right? Therefore, m is negative 32. Plug that back in. And now we have pretty good idea of what we're looking for. The only thing that we're not sure is b, right? B is the constant that we don't know. How do you find an unknown constant in an equation? Use one of the points. You plug them in. So 0, 38 is one of the points. You plug in 0, and you say the output should be 38. So 38 should equal to negative 32 times 0 plus b. See how I replace t by 0? Okay. All right. Now, yes? Do you have a question? No? Okay. And now you see that b has to equal to 38. And therefore, you get y equals to negative 32 t plus 38. Okay. Find a linear function which satisfies f of negative 4 equals to 8, f of 4 equals to 5. Same concept. What's the general form of a linear function? mx plus b, right? And how do you convert this into a point? What comma what? When x is negative 4, y is 8. This means when x is 4, y is 5. Okay. To get m, I need change of y over change of x. What is the change of y? It went from 8 down to 5, so that's negative 3. Also, the x went from negative 4 to 4, so positive 8. Right? Okay, and then you just use one of the points. So I just plug these two in to get the b. I need the y to be 8, x to be negative 4. Oh, m is, let's not use this one. Let's use x and y here, okay? So y is 5, m is negative 3 over 8, x is 4, and b is unknown. Okay? How do you multiply a number to a fraction? Yeah, you just no. It only gets multiplied to the top. Okay. So see, in a fraction, you have people living overground and people living underground. Some hermits that live underground. Normal people just live overground. Okay, so you should think of this 4 as 4 over 1. This guy's overground. Okay. And when you multiply 4 to a fraction, it only gets multiplied to the overground people, which is negative 12, right? So it's going to be negative 12 over 8 plus b. Can you simplify 12 over 8? All right, so this will be 3 and then 4, right? No, 2. 3 over 2. And you move the negative 3 over 2 to the other side, so you get 5 plus 3 over 2 equals to b. And that gives you b equals to 10 over 2 plus 3 over 2, which is 13 over 2. Oh, but that's not over, sorry. So what's the answer? Negative 3 over 8x plus 13 over 2. That's the answer. Here's a quadratic function, and the question is to simplify this thing called the difference quotient. This thing has a name. And it has a name because it's something that you get to calculate again in Math 111. Since this course is called the Precalculus, we're trying to make you prepared for calculus, and this is something that you will have to do. Now, for this question, don't try to do everything at once because it's quite dangerous, and even just trying to figure out what f of x plus h is, this is quite dangerous. Okay? Yeah. So you should probably put something like a warning sign here. Now, I want to give you like 10 seconds to think about how would you go about calculating this when you see this on the exam tomorrow. I said when you see it, meaning that it's going to be there, right? Definitely. Yeah, don't say anything. I want you to think for 10 seconds, how would you go about writing this? All right, I see a few raised hands, but let me do it, okay? This question is not so straightforward that I really want you to solve this in 2 steps. Don't try to do everything at once. Just make sure you're doing it 2 steps. Okay, let me say step 1. Step 1 is the following. F Okay, what did I just do? I took the original function f, okay? And anytime I see x, what did I do? I made a space and put parentheses there, okay? That's step 1, okay? What do you think step 2 is? Filling in it by what? Because I want x plus h goes there, okay? So the proper way to do this is into every blank, I should be writing in x plus h. Okay, promise me that you're going to do it this way. Okay? All right, yeah. You know, when I see people breaking their promise while I grade, I get mad. Yeah. But what can I do even if I get mad? I mean, you're going to get a 0, but that's about it, right? So I have to do these small microaggression that you don't see, like ripping off the corner of the exam or something. You wouldn't see it, but I have to resolve my anger somehow. Yeah. All right, but anyways, so you have this. Now, you don't want to use this right away here. Instead, you want to simplify this as much as possible and then apply it here. Okay? That's a good strategy because contrary to what it looks, this is actually a quite involved calculation. You don't want to give yourself a chance of messing it up by trying to do everything at once. Yeah. So if you have, if your parents make you eat vegetables, like maybe you might want to just eat everything at once, but try to take small bites. Okay. All right. So let's see. You have x plus h squared. What is that? You can write this as x plus h times x plus h in FOIL, but a better way is to know that it's x squared and then h squared. What's in the middle? 2xh. It's the product of these two. You multiply x and h, and you have to double it. Okay. So 2xh. Now, if you don't understand why this becomes this, then take time to write down x plus h twice and multiply it out by FOIL, and you'll see that you get this at the end of the day. Okay, and then 4 gets distributed, so it's 4x plus 4h minus 9. And then minus gets distributed, which gives you negative x squared minus 2xh minus h squared plus 4x plus 4h minus 9. Okay, now we are ready to calculate this because this first part can be replaced by what we just did. Negative x squared minus 2xh minus h squared plus 4x plus 4h minus 9. Okay, but then you have to subtract the function f of x, right? Which is negative x squared plus 4x minus 9. And this entire thing has to be over h. Okay? So I replace f of x plus h by this much, which we worked hard on. And then this second f of x is now replaced by this thing. Compare these two, and if you did it correctly, you're going to see a lot of cancellations. See this negative x squared and another negative x squared, and this is subtracted. Since the same thing is being subtracted, they're going to cancel. See this 4x and this 4x equal, and you're subtracting it, so they're going to cancel. See this negative 9 and negative 9? They're the same, and because you're subtracting it, they're going to cancel. And that gives you, what's left after cancellation? You have negative 2xh squared minus h squared plus 4h over h. Yes?
Why is the negative h squared?
Oh, sorry, it should be negative 2xh. Thank you. Yeah. And then what you can do is you can split this into a bunch of smaller fractions. And the purpose for that is it's easier to cancel if you do it that way. You can see that h is here and there, so they cancel. One of the h here will cancel this one. This h will cancel that one. So after many cancellations, you end up with the answer negative 2x minus h plus 4. That's going to be the answer. Any questions on this? Are you guys okay with splitting the fraction? I'm saying something like this. If you have, say, 6 plus 4 over 2, that's same as 6 over 2 plus 4 over 2. That's correct, right? 6 plus 4 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 6 over 2 is 3. 4 over 2 is 2. 3 plus 2 is indeed equal to 5. Yeah. So you can break up a fraction by splitting the top. Yeah. You can't split the bottom, but you can split the top. Okay, this one. You have f of negative 2 equal to 0. What do we know about that? If f of negative 2 is 0, then we know that f of x would look like no. What does the factor theorem say?
X plus
No, x minus negative 2. X minus negative 2 will be a factor. Okay. So you know that x plus 2 will be a factor. It's kind of obvious. If you view it this way, it's kind of obvious. If you have x plus 2 times something and you plug in negative 2, what's the value of the function? 0, because negative 2 plus 2 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. Isn't that right? So just from the fact that plugging in negative 2 gives you 0, you know that x plus 2 must be a factor. And that's good because we're trying to factor f of x, and you've figured out one of the factors. This is called the factor theorem, right? X minus negative 2 is a factor, and x minus negative 2 is x plus 2. So we know that x plus 2 is a factor. Okay, now, how do we know the other part? Well, this is equal to this times that. So if you divide this by this, you can get what this is, right? You have to do this divided by this. Let's do that. X cubed minus 19x minus 30, and you're trying to divide this by x plus 2. Now notice that I have a space here. That's because it's a cubic function. There's a cubic term that's the x to the first power, but there is no x to the second power. So you have to write down 0x squared. Now let's do the division. As I said, if you have time to teach yourself the synthetic division, you can use it. It's not that hard. It takes a bit of a time, but it's worth it. Okay? Yeah. So if you multiply x squared to this x, you get x cubed. X squared times 2 is 2x squared. Subtract it. 0 minus 2 gives you negative 2x squared minus 19x minus 30. Now, you multiply negative 2x to x. That matches with the negative 2x squared. The way you choose this is always that this times the leading term matches with the leading term. Right? So negative 2x times x gives you negative 2x squared, which matches with the leading term of this, right? But then that same negative 2x has to be multiplied to 2, which is negative 4x. Now let's subtract. Negative 19 minus negative 4 is same as negative 19 plus 4. What's negative 19 plus 4? Negative 15. So you get negative 15x minus 30. And now to match something times x to be negative 15x, this must be minus 15, right? And then minus 15 times x is negative 15x. Negative 15 times plus 2 is negative 30. Subtract, you get 0. That's good because now we know that this missing part is what? This missing part is x squared minus 2x minus 15. Now we can't stop here. We have to go further and factor x squared minus 2x minus 15. What is that? You're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 15, add to negative 2. What are those two numbers? 3 and negative 5. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. 3 plus negative 5 is negative 2. So you have x plus 3 and x minus 5. And that's the answer to 35. We've completely factored it. The next question is to sketch this, and I didn't write it down, but it says to first find the intercepts. So let's find the intercepts first. X-intercepts. How do you find x-intercepts? Set y as 0. If you set y as 0, you have 0 equals to x plus 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 5, which means either x plus 2 is 0, in which case x is negative 2, x plus 3 is 0, which case is x equals to negative 3. X minus 5 is 0, in which case x is 5. So you have negative 2, negative 3, and 5 as solutions, or the x-intercepts. So these are the x-intercepts. How about y-intercept? What do? You set x equal to 0, and rather than plugging in x equal to 0, it's easier to plug in x equal to 0 here. What do you get if you plug in x equal to 0? 0, 0, and you just get negative 30, right? So then you get y as negative 30. Now that's enough for us to draw the graph. Let's say here's negative 2, here's negative 3, and somewhere here will be 5. Negative 30 is way down here, but let's put negative 30 somewhere here so that the figure is not drawn to scale. And then you have to draw a cubic curve passing through these 4 points that I just drew. It has to pass through these 4 points. Now, what's the shape of a cubic? Either looks like this or like that, right? Yeah. Sometimes they might look like this or this. Okay, so which case is it? Is it something like this or this? How do we know? How do we know it's the first one? X cubed, it's 1 times x cubed, so its coefficient is positive. If it's positive, it's like that, right? That's what we learned. So it's going to be like that. Now, as long as your graph looks something like this and passes through these 4 points, I'll give you full credit. Yeah. If you learn further calculus, then you will see that the turning point is actually slightly right side of this, but since you didn't learn that, drawing a graph that has this one as a turning point, that's still fine too. Okay? Anything that has this shape will be given full credit. Okay? When you're given the question of finding end behaviors, you have to remember that when it comes to end behaviors, only the leading term, the one with the highest order, would determine it. Everything else doesn't have a say on what the end behavior does. Okay? And in some cases, you can just plug in some large number to get an idea of what the answer is. So suppose you plugged in 10 here. What's 10 to the 5th power? That's 1 with 5 zeros. What's that? 1 with 5 zeros? 10,000, right? 1 with 5 zeros will be a 6-digit number, so it's a 6-figure. So if you have a 6-figure salaries, you have 100,000, right? So you're going to get 10 to the 5th power be 100,000 times 7, so 700,000, minus 10 to the 3rd power is 1,000. So if you have $700,000, subtracting 8,000 doesn't do anything, right? Which means that the value of this will be quite large, positive large number, right? So you see that as you go right, the end behavior is going to shoot up. Right? What if you plugged in negative 10? Well, negative 10 to the 5th power would be odd powers preserve the minus, right? Negative, if you take a negative number and take an odd power, it's still a negative. So it's going to be negative 700 and some small change, okay? So negative 700,000, that's a big negative number, right? So as you go left, you're going to see that the values shoot down, big negative number. So we see that the end behavior is like that. Is that good? Similar arguments can be made over here. What's 10 to the 9th power? That's 1 and 9 zeros. 1 and 3 zeros is 1,000. 1 and 6 zeros is 1,000,000. 1 and 9 zeros is a billion. So you have negative 11 billion. That's a huge negative value, isn't it? Right. So when x is 10, you get negative 11 billion, which means as you go right, it will shoot down very fast. On the other hand, if you plug in negative 10 into 9, that's still negative, but there's a negative in front, so negative times negative is positive, so you get positive 11 billion, which is goes up, right? Okay, what if it's x to the fourth? Well, 10 to the fourth is only 10,000, so let's plug in 100. 100 to the fourth power is 100 million, okay? So there's 300 million is what you get if you plug in 100. So if x is plugged in to become something large, as you go right, the value will shoot up. So the end behavior on the right side will be positive infinity. What about if you plug in negative 10? What's going to happen? What's negative 10 to the fourth power? Negative 10 to the fourth power. Negative 10 to the fourth power is positive 10,000, right? So you see that even if you plug in negative, it still gives you some positive large value. That means as you go left, do you go up or down? Up. So the end behavior is like that. Okay? And then with the similar reasoning, 10 to the 10th power will be 10 billion. So it's like negative 100 billion as you go right. And if you move left, it will be like that. So these are the end behaviors. Okay? So the first one's going like that. Second one's going like this. Third one's going like that. The fourth one's going like this. Yes? Yeah, this one, if you look at the practice exam, I have it as a multiple choice. And the question is, which of the following has this end behavior? And the answer is B. All right, 38. Use the table below to find f of g of 11. Okay, this question is about first figuring out what this small circle means. What does this mean? It's a f of, right? Yeah, f of g. It's a function composition, which means this is same thing as f of g of 11. That's what it means. Without knowing this, it will be impossible to solve this question. So it's very important that you know the meaning of this small circle. Okay. All right. So g of 11. What does this table say? Here's g of x, and when x is 11, what's the value of g? 13. So see this? So this is going to be f of 13. What's f of 13? F of 13 is negative 8. So negative 8 is the answer for this one. Again, I have f, right? And I have x as 13. So f of 13 is negative 8. Yeah. Okay. Again, this circle means f of negative 4. Right? So what is f of negative 4? It's 11, right? So that's going to be f of 11. What's f of 11? Negative 4. So the answer is negative 4. This one's g of negative 2. What's g of negative 2? 10. Which means you have to do g of 10. What's g of 10? 7, this one. 10, it goes down to 7, right? So. Huh? It's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, it's the only challenge here is to know that this means g of f of 10. If you know that, then that's it. F of 10 is negative 4, so g of negative 4. No, sorry. F of 10 is 13. So you're looking for g of 13, which is negative 2. Is that right? F of 10 is 13, right? F of 10 is 13. And g of 13 is negative 2. So it's negative 2. Okay, this question is saying that we know that g of x and f of x have this relationship. G of x is negative 4 times f of negative 3x plus 5. And we know some values of f. We know that f of negative 6 is 5, f of negative 33 is negative 14, and so on and so on. Okay. The challenge is, what can we know about G? That's the challenge. What can we know about G of X? Well, the trick is to plug in something in this X so that this is something that you can evaluate. So let me see what I mean. If I plug in X equals to 1, for example, into the equation, this is going to be negative 4 times f of negative 3 plus 5. Do we know that? Do we know f of negative 3? No, it's not in the table. We have no idea what that is. Okay, so this is not going to help us. X equals to 1 is not going to help us at all. But then look at what happens when x is 2. You have negative 4 f of negative 3 times 2 plus 5, which is negative 4 times f of negative 6 plus 5. What's f of negative 6? It's here, so we can evaluate, right? And then that's negative 4 times 5 plus 5. That's negative 20 plus 5, which is negative 15. Great, so we know that if I plug in 2 into this equation, g of 2 is going to equal to? G of 2 is going to be negative 15. All right? Is that good? Yeah. Now, the challenge is, if I know f of negative 33, what should I plug in into x to get something meaningful for g? So you're going to get x as? No. 11 times negative 3 is going to give you negative 33. So some of you may already understood quickly what's going on. What you really want to do is just take negative 33 and divide it by negative 3, which gives you 11. So if I set x as 11, then g of 11, according to this formula here, it's going to be negative 4 times f of negative 33 plus 5. What's f of negative 33? Negative 14. And this is going to give you positive 56 plus 5, which is going to give you 61. So it's going to be 11 here and then 61 here. Okay. I know f of negative 21. What should I plug into x? 7, right? So if I plug in 7, then it's going to be x equals to 7. It's going to say g of 7 is negative 4 times f of negative 21 plus 5. F of negative 21 is negative 8 plus 5. This is going to give you 37. Okay. So here. And lastly, I know f of 15. So what should I plug into x? Negative 5. If you plug in negative 5, let me just finish off with another color. If I plug in negative 5, this is going to be negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 3 is f of 15 plus 5. F of 15 is negative 11. So negative 4 times negative 11 plus 5, that's 49. So that's the answer.